Why, hello there. It's time for one of my favorite meals, breakfast for dinner, and I'm going to be making sausage gravy today. And in front of you is all the ingredients that you're going to need. The sizzle that you can hear in the background is one of the ingredients. It's actually about 11 strips of thick-cut bacon because we're going to cook our gravy in bacon fat because bacon makes everything better. So the other things that we will need today is some ground pork sausage. We also need our seasonings and spices. So I have some fresh garlic here. The seasonings I'm going to use today are salt, pepper, sage, a little bit of paprika, and that's pretty much it. And then the only other things you need are your dairy and your flour. Flour is going to thicken our gravy for us. We'll need, I don't know, maybe a fourth a cup, a third of a cup, something along those lines. And then normally you would use like a 2% or non-fat milk because this is going to thicken a lot, but I'm going to use my leftover creams and buttermilk as well as some of the thinner non-fat milk to get the consistency that I want and to use up some products that I need to use up. And then finally, we're also going to use just a little bit of butter today. Not tons because we've also got bacon fat to worry about, but maybe a tablespoon or two of butter. So as soon as our bacon is finished cooking, we can get started. Alrighty, so as you can see, we have literally just finished crisping up our bacon, and now we have a nice smoky pan full of bacon grease. So I've gone ahead and turned the temperature way down on this. I usually keep it right above medium to fry bacon up, and my stove runs hot, but this is on more of a medium-low temperature because I need it to cool down a little. If I were to add my garlic to that, it would basically burn. So I am going to add my garlic and my ground pork only for now. I'm not actually going to season anything yet. And I'll add my pork first and then my garlic after because, like I said, this pan is still a little bit too hot and I don't want to burn my garlic. The most important thing about sausage gravy is that you don't really want like massive chunks of sausage in there. So I'm going to break this up really early on into manageable small pieces. Now the garlic is to your taste. I'm going to use a lot. Like that's probably 2 cloves of garlic right there. And yeah, it's probably like 5 cloves of garlic. If you love garlic, 5 cloves. If not, you do 2, you do 3. All right, now that I see that I've got browned sausage, entirely browned, I'm going to go ahead and add my herbs. That's going to be my paprika and my sage. Now again, I usually just sprinkle until it feels right. I'd say maybe half a tablespoon to a tablespoon of paprika. I'm going to go with like a teaspoon of sage. And then we're going to get that stirred around in there and just let it cook for a couple of minutes. So once you've given that just a couple of minutes to cook, given it a little stir, we are now going to add some flour to the sausage. I know, weird, but it's not because it's going to help our gravy to thicken up over time. And it's also going to be very important that we stir. We don't want lumps, but it's going to make the fats and the juices here in the meat thicken very quickly, and we could end up with lumps if we're not careful. So we're going to sprinkle it around rather than clumping it all up. And get to stirring. If you've ever heard of a roux, we're kind of making a roux, except there's a bunch of sausage in it. Now we're going to add our creams and our cream and our milks. So what I've done is I've got 200 milliliters of heavy whipping cream. I'm going to add that first. And then I have an even mix, 250 milliliters of non-fat milk, 250 milliliters of buttermilk, which is basically just 1 cup of each. We're going to pour that in, looking good. And now we're going to stir it about, and we're going to try and bring this to a light boil. You can go ahead and make sure that your skillet is on maybe medium or slightly over medium heat. We don't want this to be a rolling boil. We want it to be a gentle bubbling. That's what's going to make it thicken up really nicely for us. Do make sure that you don't leave this gravy unattended and that you stir it frequently. Otherwise, it's liable to burn to the bottom of the pan. So I can tell that we are nearly at our low boil. You'll notice I'm pushing the gravy off the bottom of the pan. That's where it's liable to stick or to burn because it's already thickening. And that means that the thicker gravy, if it pools somewhere, it's going to burn to that part of the pan. So you want it to keep moving. So you can see here, we've got our light boil going. I'm basically going to turn this off, and I'm even going to remove it from the heat because I don't want it to burn. Now, by removing it from the heat, we stop the bubbling immediately, but we won't stop the thickening process, which is perfectly fine. But as you can see, this is a really nice, rich, thick gravy. It's the perfect consistency. But if this is a little bit too thick for you, you can always add a bit more milk and a bit more seasoning. Or if it's not thick enough, you can go in with what we call like a flour slurry, which is where you mix some flour with water and then whisk it into the gravy. Or you could use a regular gravy thickener, but honestly, this is just absolutely perfect. Last but not least, we're going to add salt and pepper to taste. I always start with my black pepper because I put a ton of this in here. And then some salt. You might not need a whole lot because of the bacon grease, but we'll see. And then we give it a taste. That is pretty darn tasty. I think I'll add a bit more salt and then get ready to serve. The time has come to eat our gravy. Now, if you're from the United States, then you know very well what we typically serve sausage gravy with. Country fried steak or biscuits. However, I'm gonna do something crazy. You might see off to your left some pancakes. Say what? You gonna put pancakes with sausage gravy? Yes, I am, but they are sourdough pancakes, so they're not actually that sweet. These pancakes work with sweet things like maple syrup, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to work fantastically with my savory sausage gravy. So we're going to line up some of these delicious fluffy, just look at that. Just look at that pancake. It's crazy fluffy. I love sourdough pancakes. Best recipe ever. We're going to line up some of our pancakes. We're going to throw some of our crispy bacon on the side, because who doesn't love bacon? And then we are going to pile on our delicious sausage gravy. And there we are, sausage gravy. Enjoy.